Your story is waiting for you today. Your story has something new to say. But your story will only come out to play when you're alone. Alone. Alone in a room with invisible people.
The following episode may contain swearing. Alone in a Room with Invisible People is brought to you by hollyswritingclasses.com. Hi, I'm Rebecca Galardo, the host of Alone in a Room with Invisible People. I am here today with author and teacher Holly Lisle, and today's topic is how to write sex and romance in any genre. But before that, just like we do every week, we're going to talk about our accomplishments. So Holly, go ahead.
All right. Well, my 3 books per week, well, no, not writing 3 books per week, but my working on 3 novels per week system is really kicking ass. I am so excited about this. I got my 1,515 plus words in Dead Man's Party. I have Moon and Sun 3 completely outlined now. And I know how it ends, and the first scene starts getting written on Tuesday, and Tuesday and Wednesday are my days for that. The Wishbone Conspiracy, I am through the first fifth of the novel at this point in first draft. It is flying. I'm doing 2,000 plus words per day on that on my Thursdays and Fridays, and it is just, man, if I had more time, it would be awesome, but I don't. I've got to do this, and I'm running a little long anyway on that. I have to do this supposedly in an hour per day because that's what my Patreon funding is covering. But I'm cheating a little bit and writing 2 hours per day on that because it's such fun.
Well, it's also your passion project, so there's nothing saying you can't work a little bit over on your passion project.
Oh my God, I'm so happy writing it. I'm so glad to be back to Katie. And Herrig is off doing other stuff right now. So she and Tarko and Wire and Stormrat are getting themselves into some serious shit right now.
I like Stormrat.
Yeah, I do too. I do. And he showed up in the Longview Chronicles, and he is back in this, and he hasn't kind of let me know yet that he wants his own book. He definitely doesn't get his own series because we have had petitions for that, and people who go in that direction are going to get shot. I'm saying that loud enough that they can hear me.
Well, I would love to read his own book, though. That would be pretty cool. But the problem is, with you and the way that you write, he might end up demanding his own series.
Yes. And oh my God, between Cadence Drake and Bailey's Irish Space Station and all of the stuff that's in the City of Furies, I have got to rein it in. I've got to keep just the stuff that I've got going because I love all of those and I have to write them all, but I don't need any more. So, and I am now working on lesson 24 of how to write a novel.
Yay!
Yeah, so that too is continuing on schedule and apace. Your turn.
Nice. Let me see. Oh yeah, I have worked on some of the cover ideas for a possible reboot for one, and then I am wanting to do a couple of portfolio pieces, and that's what you sent me.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just the art stuff. So you sent me the briefs, the example briefs, and I want to start that either later today or probably Monday. I am taking 2 weeks off from writing because I finished the second book.
Yes.
Yeah, and you got to be there for both first draft finishes and the revision finish. No, not the revision finish, but the revised novel submitted.
Yes.
You got to be there for that, and then I had to, I remember rushing through that just so that I could have said, I did it while Tony was there too.
Yeah.
And I got it done. And then, so the second book is Brock and Angie. So for any of my bug hunters or anybody who had read the first one, they have their own book now. And a lot of the last scenes were summaries because a lot of them are heavy, research intensive heavy. scenes. So I need to look into police procedures, and especially like small town versus big town. And there is some stuff with Angie that I have to go back when I do the revision and figure out how to fix this and find the antagonist motivation, because it turned out to be somebody I was not expecting. So I'm going to have to fix that stuff, figure out what needs to go in, because part of it is, and I didn't realize I did this on purpose. The antagonist is a very big person, and Angie is a very small person. So even though she tries to fight, he still takes her down. I didn't realize when I was writing, it was kind of like what you said, to use your estrogen, but it's not quite that. Like so you were talking about using your estrogen to fight. Mm-hmm. Katie does that. I'm not sure if it's that, but it's more using her talents, because that's what I was intending, was that she was going to use her skills to kind of try to save herself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I don't want to give away too much, but
no, don't.
Yeah. But that's kind of what happens in the book, is she can't physically fight him. She's not a fighter anyway. So she has to use her skills to keep alive for a little bit.
Nice.
Yeah. But yeah, I was really happy about finishing that. But then again, like, it's so weird. After I finished the first fully revised book, I was so excited, or finished the first draft, then finished the first revision, then sent it off. All of those firsts, except for finishing my first draft of a book. I've done that plenty of times. Then when I finished this one, I was happy for a minute or two, I was excited. I texted Tony, I talked to you, and then I was like, all right, what's next on my to-do list?
Yep, that's it. That's oh my God, that is so it.
I just couldn't believe. I'm like, wait a minute. What am I, a hard seasoned veteran already? What the hell is this?
Well, you are a veteran. You have been writing and finishing and publishing stuff for years and years and years. It's the fact that you are doing stuff now that you are aiming for commercial publication does not change the fact that finishing something is not a new thing for you.
Yeah.
So you're expecting the fact that you're going to submit this to a commercial publisher to be different, but it's not. The finishing thing is what counts.
Yeah.
And and then your brain goes, okay, next idea, let's go.
Yep. Yeah, so I'm already, I was already plotting some of the third book, and it's not, I don't know, it's not what I was expecting already, which is cool. And, but it's definitely still the storyline that I want to cover. And, so yeah, that was my week. I did a lot of art, I did a lot of studies, and I, got some of the... got the book done and got some of the next book planned already.
Yeah, that is awesome. That is a really good week.
So we wanted to have this episode, How to Write Sex and Romance in Any Genre, done for the, Valentine's Day thing. But we had an unexpected thing pop up that Holly was really interested in, and by the time I remembered we were supposed to do Valentine's Day, she'd already done the worksheets and already done her show, or was going to do show notes next, and it was like, oh, I can't do that to her.
Thank you.
Yes. So this is the episode, How to Write Sex and Romance in Any Genre, not just romance. So Holly, go ahead.
Okay. We're going to start with the concept that romance and sex are different for everybody. So you are going to have to figure out your working definition of what is romance, and then your working definition of what is sex. And then you are going to have to find the people for whom your definition clicks, because not everybody can write fiction. No one can write fiction that will connect with everybody. We are way too variable for that. So you are going to then be writing fiction that you love for your perfect readers. And no matter what clicks with you, that you have people who want to read that. You just have to find them. And that ain't easy, but that's also not the point of this episode. So right now you have to just figure out. My working definition of romance is pretty broad. It is two people who have a deep emotional connection to each other. And it may or may not include sex. That they want to share their lives or their time or their relationship with each other. And that they find parts of that they don't have in themselves in someone else, and that they complete each other. So that is my definition of romance. And within that definition, I have written gay and straight and multigendered and trans and just a bunch of different kinds of relationships, and have been doing this since my first novel, when I was talking about the Who's and their 10 genders. Back then I had 13, because I was including some things that when I actually broke this down came down to 10. I'd had a little duplication. But, in my very first novel, there are the Who's and their 13 genders. And that was normal for them. So
not only that, but the woman, Medwin Song, had 10 husbands. Nine husbands. Yes.
Yes.
I thought that was really cool.
Well, she got into that sort of cat situation where she didn't want to just let them go, but she turned into kind of a collector. They were all so cute.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a different time. So that is my working definition of romance. Yours will be different. So what's yours?
Well, mine is the same, actually, because I got really into writing erotica. My first erotica story, please forgive me, was that Office story with Jon Stewart from The Daily Show. Yeah, that's dated. But yeah, he was very cute back then. I'm not saying he's not now, but it was really good. And then he was in this movie, I don't remember what it was called, but it was a romance movie where they had a whole bunch of different romances together, and he was in one of them, and I was like, oh. Yeah, he was one of those quick romance or quick crushes that I had.
Yes, he was one of your quick rollovers, unlike Gary Oldman.
Yeah. Yep, Gary Oldman and
Val Kilmer.
Yeah, Val Kilmer.
He had some staying power.
Oh yeah, he's pretty. And he was actually one of the very few blondes that I liked. And then there's The Fly, Jeff Goldblum. And for some reason, he has become insanely popular with this younger part of my generation, the millennials. And I'm happy. Like, other people are like, oh, I liked him before it was cool. I'm like, whatever. There's more of him around now. Be happy. But yeah, so my idea of romance is pretty much the same. I was writing the stuff, the Clecks for Clark and Licks when I was 15 or 16, and
Yep, you got your start in gay erotica.
Yeah, well, I got my start from more the male-female, because I created a Mary Sue. It was awful. Under the name Vandaline Z. Therese, which I know you always hated the Vandaline.
It sounded like Vaseline to me.
Ugh, because you're stupid. It's a beautiful name. Vandaline Z. Therese. And I was writing this Mary Sue character for Law & Order SVU because I had a big crush on Munch. Again, I have the weirdest freaking taste in men. And then I noticed that there was some kind of interesting chemistry between Munch and Odafin Tutuola, who is played by Ice-T, who I just adore. So that was actually I believe the start, or no, I think it really was Clark and Lex from Smallville, and maybe then them. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and check the dates. But yeah, and I feel like that kind of, there's this difference in not only the definition of romance, but the definition of how romance is perceived for different people. And so, like, between Tony and me, my so stupid love language, I'm putting that in quotations, and it's actually not stupid, it's actually really smart, kind of basic tear down of the different ways that we tell somebody that we love them. Mine tends to be acts of service and affection and words. So, like, I'll say I love you a lot. I'll thank him all the time for the things he does. I will do things for him, like wash his clothes, since he works out of the house. I can work in my pajamas if I want to, and it doesn't matter. But that's and kind of like I get his clothes ready for the next day, and he gets really sad. He's like, I don't have any clothes to wear. I'm going to go to work naked if I don't put it out. He's very cute. And his romance is service, acts of service, and gifts. So he will cook me dinner. When he could, he would make my coffee for me in the morning. He would build me things. He's built me just a shit ton of stuff. And then he also, he likes to give me presents. Like, he's not as affectionate. He always says, I love you too. But he's not as affectionate, but his love language, as it's called, is different from mine, but at least we have the acts of service together. So it's the same thing in showing romance, and I keep that part of my definition is I look at the character and try to figure out what their love language is, also by looking at their astrology signs, their astrological signs, and then try to find the other between their partner. So it's also kind of neat because you can get so much conflict just from looking at how they were raised and looking at how their astrological sign gives them certain personalities or whatever.
Yeah, I've used that method in the past for building conflict. I am not a believer in astrology, but
I think that's funny because you used to be when you saw Matt's astrological symbol.
Oh, yeah.
Or his definition, because he is a Leo.
He is.
Yeah, but I use it to help generate, okay, well, what would this person's love language be?
Right, because it gives you a new, a complete different set of conflicts built right in.
Well, between that and their biography, their little, what they had in life, that will build, because of Tony, his upbringing wasn't the best. He doesn't really have the affection in him as much.
Yes.
So he gives it more to the cats, which is really cute.
Yeah, for a guy who hated cats until you came along, the fact that he has become a cat person along with being a dog person, I think is just funny as fuck.
Yeah, he'll say he's not a cat person, but
but
he doth protest too much.
Yes.
But yeah, so that I always try to include in the definition, because I always try to include the idea of a love language in the definition. You know, like all the stuff you said, which was perfect, and they express it through different love languages.
Yeah. I have never really given a lot of thought to the love language thing, and that really is a good idea. That probably is an area where I am not particularly deep in what I write, is because I have never really considered that whole love languages conflict kind of thing.
Didn't
That's
either,
different.
but I was because Tony and I are so different. We do have what you said. We have a difference in us that completes us. You know, like I warm him up and he calms me down. You know, and there's just a lot of he's strong where I'm weak, and I'm strong where he's weak.
Yeah, we're the same in that regard.
And it just, I was so young, and he's 10 years older, so there was a lot of difficulty. So I was reading a lot of stuff on understanding men or understanding the differences, understanding how your partner is saying I love you even if you don't know it. And that's when I found the book on love languages. And that was really eye-opening, because that's when I started paying attention to all of the little things that Tony does. Because when you have a different love language, you don't always see it. You want somebody to do what you think is love, but they have a different definition of it. So I always try to include that in my romance ideas and stuff. Because
really
not
good
everybody looks at flowers like it's a romantic gesture.
Right. Yeah, that's true. So, okay. From that, we then have to go through a working definition of sex. And this, I vary from almost everybody. I am politically totally incorrect on this, intentionally, because the political definitions of sex have no validity. Whereas the biological definitions of sex, I came up with 10 legitimate genders, and worked my way through it and figured out 10 different ways that people are born or adapt to as they grow older that determine what kind of relationships they're looking for, what kind of gender they are. And I had come up with this very early. Like I said, when my first novel, this has been a question for me for all of my life. What is gender? And so I came up with, I could figure out 10. I thought I could figure out 13 back when I was writing The Hoos, but when I sat down and really worked through it, I could figure out 10, starting with asexual and ending with multi attractions to everybody all the time, but not wanting to be who you are. And there is a sliding scale that runs all the way up and all the way back between no sex and all the sex all the time with everyone, and attractions, and then being who you are physically in your body, being the other gender physically in your body, being both in your body, which you can't ever be, and then being neither, having being attracted to people, but having just hating what you are.
Now, didn't you do a blog post on this?
Oh yeah,
like years and years ago.
If you look up 10 normal genders, it is the first thing that comes up in every search engine.
Yeah, I'll put that in the blog post.
Yeah,
or in the show notes.
Yeah. Because I think it's an article, not a blog post, and it is long, and it might have been a blog post. I don't know. Either way, it's easily searchable.
It is long. I remember reading that. I think it was during the the debate about legal marriage, I think, that you were.
Yeah, and I've been a proponent of gay marriage since forever.
Yeah, my favorite meme was gay marriage. In other words, marriage.
Yes. Yes, exactly. I looked at my relatives who were out inside of the family, and at the lives that they had to live because they couldn't be outside of it, and these relationships they had with people that they wanted to be with and couldn't be with. And I thought that is just utterly fucked.
Yeah.
These are people I love. I want them to be happy. And they did interesting work. I mean, my husband, or my good God, my Uncle Nick was a house flipper back before that was a thing. And my aunt was a nurse. And, they were these people who had real jobs and real passions and things that they loved. And their gender was just not, it was meaningless it was meaningful to them. But how I could relate with them as a human being wasn't. It was completely irrelevant.
Not their gender, but their sexual.
The sexual orientation. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, gender didn't really matter either. They could have been either, and they would have still been great. They were wonderful people. So the working definition of sex, again, is something that has to be individual to you. It has to click with you. You have to write what matters to you, and then you will find people who share that same, I can't say orientation, but that same passion for reading about these specific things. And people don't even necessarily want to read about what they are. Sometimes they want to read about what they aren't.
Yeah.
And, you will find readers that are broadly different than you who still love what you write, along with the people who are really like you and love what you write. So, again, working definition of sex. For me, it is the physical aspect of the relationship, whatever that might be. And it varies from person to person. And it does not include animals.
Yeah, no, definitely not. No. And that's the thing too, like my definition pretty much is, a physical act between people. That's all I think of as sex, because if it's in my romance stuff, it is romance. If it is in any of my other stuff, it can just be two people that, never met before having fun. But yeah, just a physical act between two people or more.
Right.
Two or more people.
Or more.
And it depends on what you're writing to whether or not it's romantic or fun or both or not.
Yeah, for me, I find all of it fascinating.
Yeah.
But I have some places where I use romance and where I don't. I put romance in everything. I put relationships between my characters and everything. Right. Back for just a second here. No animals, no kids, no prepubescent anything ever. Okay. So having said that,
see, and I don't like the shifter stuff, but that's just me.
Yeah. Well, that
it's just
I have
weird
read
to
some
me,
of it. It's weird. Yeah. It's not. And what I would write. Well, yeah. I don't know, with the exception of the occasional vampire, and I do have one guy with tiger
Vampires
DNA.
Aren't shifters.
No, but they aren't shifters. That's true.
Yeah,
they're just
the
people.
one I could see is werewolves. But I don't understand why a werewolf would want to have sex with a regular human being when they won't have the right libido. To me, that would just be my writing anyway. Maybe they have the same libido.
Yeah.
But yeah, just knowing that you're having sex with something that is sometimes a dog or a tiger. Yeah. No, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. No. I cannot separate that. But I understand that a lot of people do, and I totally don't judge them. I'm just like, personally, that is not my thing.
No, I find that icky, but that is me. Yeah. It's as long as it's consensual and adult, I am, pretty much okay there.
Yeah.
So that's my working definition of sex. And there are places where I use sex and there are places where I don't. My science fiction has no sex in it. It has the implication of people having relationships, but it is strictly fade to black. That is a personal preference of mine when reading science fiction, and so that is what I do when I'm writing science fiction. When I was writing my romances, those were fairly spicy. When I was experimenting with porn, that was really, really, really spicy. I never published any of it. I decided I didn't want that to show up in my readers list. So, that became a thing that amused my husband. But it's something that when you're looking at trying to make a living at this, you think, well, that sells. And then you think, yeah, but, you have other stuff out there, and that is not compatible with the other stuff you have out there.
See, and I just want to point this out to anybody listening. Holly goes through these phases, too, of where she is looking at something that sells, and her thing is that she always comes back to the things that she loves or can put her love into and passion. So it's perfectly normal to look at something and think, well, I really want to make money at it. But again, you have to stick with something that you can put your name on and be proud of. And obviously it wasn't worth it for you to put your name on anything like that.
No.
Yeah.
And there have been lots of writers who have written porn under different names.
Shel Silverstein.
Yeah, had a wall between, this identity and that identity. And there are some smart motherfuckers out there who will read through stuff and go, my, that style is remarkably similar. And look at the word choices. Oh,
Yeah, I'm worried about that
Yeah.
for my other pen name.
So, yeah, there are people who will track back what you have written to the other stuff you have written and make the connection, and there you are. So if you don't want it out there, it's like nudie pictures of yourself on the internet. If you don't want them out there, don't take them.
Well, you can take them, just don't
don't
leave them on
upload them to your cell
or
phone.
Don't upload, yeah. Just like those poor celebrities that keep getting hacked, and then people give them shit for taking nudie photos. Look, come on.
Yeah.
They have to have a private life, and look, they have to work out, they have to eat, they have to have these stringent workout plans and stringent diets to look that good. Let them feel freaking nice about their bodies. Good grief, people. Anyway, what's the next point?
Okay, love, sex, and celebrities. All right, moving on.
Wow, that should have been the thing, and it would be a clickbait title.
Yeah, it would be. Okay, so what you are looking at when you are putting romance, with or without sex, into your story, first off, is what does a romantic relationship bring to a story? And this was something that it took me a while to learn. Initially, I was just out there shooting stuff in every single direction. The first book that I wrote, where I had Medwin Song and her 9 husbands, whom she dumped for an really old guy named Nokar the librarian. She
Oh, spoiler.
Yeah, well, hey, it was my first novel,
91, so
yeah, it's been out there since 1991.
No, 91.
Yeah,
because
1991.
Katie was 7.
Yeah, that's right. So, and the other relationship I had in there was with my main character, and that was strictly sex. And she was using sex to get information from guys at the male university.
Yeah, that was funny.
Well, yeah, and she, there were repercussions from that too.
Yeah, but she had this view of sex as if it was just something to have fun and something to blow off steam and something to it was just a very progressive look at sex, especially in the early 90s.
Yeah, well, she grew up in a village. She grew up in a farming village where kids knew what sex was from pretty much the time they walked out the door in springtime and saw the animals that they were breeding. So they knew what, or, actually I think probably in winter because you have to wait for the gestation. They have to be born in spring. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she had what they considered, what the women at the university considered a real hick version of sexuality, something that they did not approve of. But it turned out to save the world because she found out the information she needed from this guy, told it to her instructor. The instructor did some further research in what was considered a more appropriate manner and turned out falling in love with the enemy. And that, too, helped to save the world.
Yeah. Their Puritan view on sex and things, and the fact that if you got pregnant, you got kicked out of the university. It was a very good book, and it holds up to today. And I really love Fire in the Mist.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, my writing could have been a little better, but it was my...
No, it was fine. Shut up.
I look at it now and I think of a lot of things that I could have done differently, but you don't go back.
Everybody does that.
Yeah. You don't go back and fuck around with your old stuff. You let it sit there and you let people find what you were good at and bad at then, and that see that you have progressed over the years. Yeah. You don't just keep reworking the same book over and over again.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of people will publish it in self-publication. They tend to have this habit of, oh, well, I've learned so much, I want to go back and fix it. Mm-hmm. In fact, one of my friends, I think, it does that. And it's like, no, you move on and you grow. And if you get to the point where you really hate something that you self-published, delete it. People still have it, but just get rid of it if it's that bad. But yeah, anyway, go ahead.
Okay. So what you're looking at is with a romantic relationship, what does it bring to your story? And the things that it brings to my stories generally are the potential loss or gain of this primary value of the main character's other person, or, you know, in some instances, other people. That it allows us as writers to express why we as human beings matter to each other, and to show that with fictional conflicts, and to show loss, and to show the fear of loss, and to show the coming together of two people who didn't think they had what it took to be together, who realize through trials and tribulations and struggling together towards a common goal with different methods and disagreements and whatever else it takes to get them to understand that they are on the same side, that they belong with each other. And this is, and I've done this since the beginning. You know, the girl in the first book who got knocked up and got kicked out of the university and went on to find that she didn't find her guy. She didn't. She ended up a single mother, and she was pretty good at it. And her kid was a terror, and was pretty good at that. And she, at the end of the third book, had just found the person that she was going to connect with, and the series got canceled. So.
Oh no.
Yep.
Oh geez.
Yep. Planned it for 10. Got killed at 3.
Oh, that would have been really cool to read.
Yeah, well, yeah, it would have been really cool to write too, because she was going to go outside of the Delmiri barrier, and she was going to find the secret to the 6-legged.
Yes,
the creatures,
everything
and the whole,
with 6 legs.
Yeah, the whole other thing that was going on out there. And it was going to go from being fantasy to being a really interesting sort of fantasy science fiction hybrid. And at 3, with her crossing the damn Delmiri barrier, it ended.
Oh.
Yeah. And now I can't rewrite it, because all of that world is gone. All of the research, all of the everything. And it's been way too many years, and I have gone through it and looked at it, and all the linguistic stuff, all the shit that I put in the first 3 books, I have no references for anymore. So,
well, and you've moved on.
I have moved on too. I have started, the stories I'm writing now are a lot bigger and a lot deeper. But yeah, so that is what the question: what does a romantic relationship bring to a story? Those are the 2 big things it brings for me. You have some other takes on that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of what you said, again, it's valid. I think because you raised me, I have a lot of the same ideals. But I think that a big thing that it brings to the book is this hope, you know, and the concept of 2 people making themselves better people, not just for each other, but each other makes them a better person, makes them want to do, you know, this stuff with Tony, our whole marriage and friendship for 13 years, going on 14, because I met him in 2005, October 2005. So, and we were friends, like, pretty much instantly because of his stupid grin, you know. I hated salesmen. I said I was never, ever, ever going to be friends with any of them. And then he walks through the door with, I remember the first time I saw him with that big, stupid, contagious grin of his. And I was done. Mm-hmm. So that it's just, you support each other and each other's dreams, and you do whatever you can to help the other person be the best person that they want to be. And I want to bring that to stories. I want any romance I write, I want to have that in there. And it can be subtle, like in the first Leaving Wanda Lucia, it was very subtle, at least I think. But there was a lot of this in a lot of my work, the stuff that I've been doing since I was very little. And I think that came from, seeing how you and Matt were working together to just try to be better people. And the hope that maybe for the reader, but also just in general, that there's this idea of a soulmate, and people get stuck with that because of Hollywood. They think they have to find a person that shares the same interests, that connects with them in, the same love language, and that they never fight. My boyfriend, my first real serious relationship, and my ex, we fought one time in 4 years, and it wasn't working. One time, literally. We might have had differences of opinions, but we never really argued. We never fought. We shared some of the same interests, and it didn't work. So I'm not saying that doesn't work for everybody. I'm just saying it didn't work for me because I needed something else. And I want to put that in romance. I want to put that there is necessarily no soulmate for you. That it's not finding love. It's finding a friendship or finding a relationship, finding somebody who makes you happy and who you want to be with, and making that work, and making that true love.
Yeah. So
it's not finding true love, it's finding love and making it true love, staying together and working things out. Obviously, if you're physically abused, or if there's some kind of things that make you uncomfortable, or you don't agree with the person's convictions, that's different,
That's leaving time.
Yeah. There's some things that you can't make work.
Right.
And sometimes I used to hate this song, sometimes love isn't enough.
Yeah.
It's absolutely true. And I hate that. Because sometimes love just isn't enough. It isn't enough to make a relationship work.
Right. You have to have a certain compatibility too. And part of my problem with a lot of romances that I have read is that the people had nothing in common. They were completely wrong for each other, but they fell in love. They had this chemistry, and they were terrible together, but they were in love. Therefore, that was the romance. And with the experience of having been divorced a couple of times and had a relationship that was, outside of marriage once, and I made some interesting fuck-ups when I was young. I really did. I married the wrong guy for the wrong reason. Knew he was the wrong guy when I married him. Had 2 great kids who had horrible childhoods because of him. And looked outside marriage briefly, and that was that ended in me almost killing myself, followed by having a moment when I went, no, divorce might be okay. Divorce might be okay. That might be an alternative to running into a tree.
And just as a note here, the reason why suicide was even an option was because of the horrible relationship that your parents had, and because of their beliefs that they forced on you.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So
suicide. Yes. Maybe that's better than having to go through a divorce and disappointing my awful parents.
Yes. And that was my option at 3:00 in the morning on the way home one night. And
that really shook Mark when you told him.
Yeah, and I was aimed at the tree in a Taurus with my seatbelt off and my foot pedaled to the metal. It wasn't Maxton, it was Rayford. It was this enormous tree outside of Rayford heading from Fayetteville to Laurinburg. And that tree was a live oak. It had probably been there since before the Civil War. Massive thing. And I thought, that'll do it. And I went in. And that the last minute, this little voice in the back of my head said, maybe divorce wouldn't be so bad. And I veered in time, and that's as close as I ever got.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you saved all of our lives when you made the decision to stay alive.
Yeah, and I was 27 at the time, and if I had done that then, you would have been stuck with your bio father, and I would never have written anything, and you would have been, yeah, that just could have gotten so much worse. So I am very glad that I, veered.
Yeah.
In any case, so I have made some interesting mistakes, and I, the second time I got married, I married a guy I really liked, but we were on absolute opposite ends of the spectrum of what we wanted out of a relationship. And I didn't find that out until after we were married. So, I wanted one person for the rest of my life. And on my third try, hey, I found somebody who wanted the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's 9 years younger than me, and he is...
Mom's a cradle robber.
Yep. But he's funny and brilliant and really fun to look at, and... And I am grossing out my daughter.
Yes. So let's get back to the discussion of sex. This was a great idea on my part.
That's what we were heading towards, and you made me stop.
Yep. Oops. My mistake.
All right. So that's why we matter to each other, is why both sex and romance have a place in fiction, because they give you something important, something that matters to the characters, something that makes you just have to write it so that you can see that it works out okay for them, or, in tragedies that it doesn't. But I don't like those books. I like books where I'm such a wuss.
It's talking about bringing hope. That's what you want. It's the same thing. There's enough tragedy in the world as it is. And if you want to write tragedy, that's fine. That's your choice. But it's your choice to give them better endings than that.
Yeah. And I choose to give my characters the endings that they have earned, not to punish them because I'm an evil dick. I want them to have the happiness that I finally got and that I was looking for before. And, 23 years. Almost 24 now. Yeah, 24 in just a few days. So,
aww.
Yep. Best damn thing I ever did. So, what breaks a fictional romance then? And when you are, now this is not what breaks up the characters. This is what makes your romance not work for the reader, which is two completely different things. So what we are looking at here is what breaks the writing of the romance when the writer screws up. And what I'm starting with here is unsympathetic characters. And it's really hard to use literary references for this because everybody hasn't read almost everything. So I've used some TV references, and unfortunately, because most of what I watch from TV that even sticks at all is sitcoms, because we don't have TV. We have a series of DVDs that we bought years ago, and so we have things like Friends, and
you've got Netflix too.
Yeah, we have Netflix, and we watch stuff from there. The Orville is awesome, and it has a nice little kind of quasi-romantic thing going on in there right now. What you're looking at that I can relate to is unsympathetic characters that I can show you, which is, for example, Claire in Modern Family and Rachel in Friends, where they are, in Rachel's case, an irredeemable bitch. In that
I like her, but yeah, I see what you mean.
But she is manipulative. Yes. She lies. She demands to be right. She demands to have her ass kissed at every possible opportunity. She was wrong, And
They
had
were
this
on a
thing-
break.
Yeah. Yes. And then demanded that she had never said that. Throughout the rest of the thing. No. She had never said that they were on a break. That was all him. It was all his fault. And at one point, she had him have to drink some fat to prove that he actually loved her. Monica had a glass of fat stored in the fridge that she was going to use for cooking. And she demanded that he sit there. If he wanted her to ever give him a chance again, he had to drink the fat. And he was ready to drink it. And she said, okay, you don't have to do that. That is not redemption. Because if you are demanding that somebody make some sort of fucking sacrifice for you, you're an asshole. And Rachel is an asshole. From beginning to end. I loathe her. Now, Claire has a lot of the same problems. But she is written more for comic relief. With Claire in Modern Family, she is frequently written the same way. Bitchy, manipulative, demanding, unwilling to see anybody's point of view but her own. But she was written by slightly better writers. And from time to time, they make her see herself through the eyes of other people and realize who she is and how unlikable she is. And then let her become a little better again for a while until she goes back to her default, which is somebody that I just cannot stand. But that is one stereotypical character that can break a romance, is someone who, like Rachel, demands that her way is the only way and that her ass will be kissed as the necessary default for the relationship. And if she does not get her way, if she is not the fucking princess, then the relationship is not going to work. In which case you say, all right, moving on. And you as the male or the female who is in love with this character, move on.
There was so much to Rachel, and I think they overplayed the Daddy's Princess pieces, because the whole point was that she was supposed to grow and be a different person,
but she never did.
Yeah, I mean, there's some areas where she did, where she started working for a living and all this other stuff, but they didn't do it in the romance. So by the time, and she was always nicer to Joey. I kind of liked the Rachel Joey mix. I thought maybe her and Ross just didn't gel, but
right. I thought she and Joey, she might have turned into a human being if she had been written to. Yeah,
but they didn't want to go that route. The one character I'm thinking of, there's so many, but there's the one in Everybody Loves Raymond, and I don't remember her name. His
wife?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember her name either, but
Deborah.
I loathed her too.
Deborah.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, they're written better to me than like the Ross Rachel thing, but and I understand some of her issues with him, because he's always lying to her. He's always hiding shit that he does.
Yeah, he's not likable either.
No.
That's why nobody in that show was likable except for the tall doofy guy.
Yeah, well, I liked his brother. Yeah, that he was good. And I actually liked his parents, because they had a couple of moments in there where it was clear that a lot of what they did on the outside, it didn't matter, because all he wanted was her and all she wanted was him. They did all of these things. Yeah, I don't think you watched it enough to really get there. But
I never got there.
Yeah. Well, I liked...
that sounds good.
I liked it because a lot of it was funny. And I loved the parent thing. Marie was, I don't remember Peter Boyle's character's name, but Marie and him were great. And it was just, there was a chemistry between them. They were freaking hilarious. They pretended to hate each other half the time. And while my relationship isn't that extreme, to outsiders, it seems like Tony and I are not a good mix. But to me, we fit each other. We complement each other. And with Raymond and her, it just never felt like that. She was bossy. She was demanding. She was nagging. She just and he was just horrible. But they're just unsympathetic. If he was every now and then, like, I'm going to sneak off to the golf course, like every now and then. And that maybe that would be understandable. I don't know. It would be more sympathetic, but it's just the constant lying, the constant bitching and nagging. It just didn't gel. And you couldn't see why either one of them fell in love with each other. And it wasn't, I don't know. A lot of people like the show. I'm not dumping on them. A lot of people have different kinds of relationships, but it just didn't work for me. And there's so many relationships where the writers run out of the conflict for the will they, won't they? And that was the problem with Ross and Rachel, was they didn't want them to get together because that was why a lot of people were watching. And then when they get together, then you have that problem of maybe losing the viewer's interest because, but the way that they added the conflict in there was just awful.
It was. They resolved it. They used the conflict argument, which actually takes us. Oh well, I guess
wanted
we did
to do any more of the characters or the.
Yeah.
Well, I brought that one up to you, so I can.
Yeah, you
mention
had some good stuff. Ross in Friends just didn't work to me because he was totally insecure. He never took a chance. He was unutterably weak, and unwilling to stand up and say no, bitch. You said we were on a break. That was you.
I mean, he did. He kept saying it, but
he didn't make it stick. He didn't move on.
Yeah, he didn't move on. Yeah.
And at the point where she could see what she was missing, but she wasn't missing anything with him because he had no spine. But if he had moved on, then they could have had this thing of, well, will they, won't they? He's this great guy who found somebody else, and now she's in love with him, and he is not. Matt and I were discussing this the other day. He said the one moment where I really thought that Ross was a real person was when he was getting married to the woman over in England, Emily, and they were doing their vows, and he said Rachel's name. And that, to me, genuinely was a human connection of what really mattered to him, and that this woman that he was marrying was a placeholder for the woman he really loved.
Yeah.
And that in that moment, he was a real character for me. And the rest of the time, he was this despicable piece of spineless wuss.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
I mean, well, no, we are not
harsh.
kind. Yes.
My
yes.
mom's a savage.
Yeah, well, that was Matt's opinion, too.
My mom and then stepdad are savage. I wouldn't say he's despicable, but he's annoying. And the one that I brought up was more or less an unfortunate genre type for romance, not just in fiction, but also you see them in shows and in movies. And it's that over dominating male that, if you read like you used to read in the 70s, 70s Harlequin and Silhouettes,
God,
it's just this asshole, basically.
Yeah.
This arrogant piece of crap man that is just, he's unsympathetic. He makes demands. He does what he wants. He doesn't care about the woman's opinion. Nothing matters. And then they have these moments of vulnerability that come across as attempts to show some inside, but it's so poorly written that it doesn't feel real. It feels forced. It feels like, okay, well, this is the formula. A lot of males in TV shows and movies, they're written by people who don't seem to know what love or romance is. They don't, or they think they know what the viewer wants to see. So you have these characters that are action heroes, or all these men with, that are all about one thing, and then they try to shove a romance into the storyline just to hit their, female markets. And it's irritating. And then there's the weak, timid woman that usually goes along with him. And the shows of strength on her part are forced and bullshit as well.
Right. Right. That was my summer of 16, where I was working at Burger Chef in Ohio, in East Liverpool. And I had a friend who brought me an entire grocery bag full of Harlequin romances. And I took them home and read them all in like 3 weeks. I mean, big grocery bag. Big.
Oh, yeah. I remember we were talking about that. Amanda did
Yeah.
the same thing for me a couple of times.
Yeah. And I went through and read them all. And they were all the same. It was 30-year-old asshole man, 19-year-old virgin.
Yep.
And some situation that threw the two of them together. And at the end, they had sex. And it was never, that was it, man. That was the whole, there was no relationship. There were conflict arguments. There was nothing there. But goddamn, I was desperate for something to read, so I read them all.
And just to mention real quick too, any of these characters that start off like that, because we were talking about Rachel, it's awesome to have them start out as any of these stereotypes and then have an arc. So in any book at all, in anything, if you want to have the vapid Princess Rachel character, but have her grow in so many ways, and then have her become a better person, and it work in the romance. Or you have a guy who is an asshole, and then his heart melts or grows 3 times its size or whatever it did with the Grinch, then that's great. That's wonderful. I love that.
Okay, that's a really good idea. So let's take a second here and rebuild Rachel.
Yeah.
Okay? She comes in. She is the vapid, skillless, sheltered princess who was expected to marry a doctor and become a doctor's wife. And that was supposed to be her. That was who she was supposed to be. This had been planned out for her by her parents, who had done this. And this was their life. And so how do you then, she moves to the city and she rooms with these people and she discovers that she has to have a job, and she discovers that there are people out there who do not fit her qualifications of doctor, but who might be romantic interests. Won't get her parents' approval, but, fuck them anyway. Well, we have learned, have we not? You haven't, because we like Tony. But
Well, you didn't at first, though. You were worried about him, so.
Yeah, we were worried about him initially.
Yeah,
but
because
we thought you were pretty smart, so you would probably be all right.
Yeah, just trusted me.
Yes. So then, how do you fix her? Well, you make her struggle with parts of her life. You make things hard on her. You don't let things be easy. And from the struggles that she has, you allow her to see people differently.
Yeah, and even with the job, she didn't really struggle. She was a bad waitress, which was funny, but it was realistic, and it was fun to see her trying to get better. And she never did, which is ridiculous. And then, but also kind of her character, because she didn't care really about that job.
Right.
But when she got the fashion job, it came out of nowhere. Yeah, she was a character that, loved fashion and stuff, but she just fell into this high-paying, wonderful job, and it frustrated me, because that's typically not how shit works. And it's not how you grow to just fall into something. And they're trying to, again, this was like a forced, okay, well, we need something new for Rachel, so let's just give her this.
Right. And that's the way it came across, too, that she was given it and miraculously proved to be good at it, in spite of the fact that she knew nothing, and was proud of the fact that she knew nothing. This was her modus operandi, man.
Yeah.
That she did not, I don't need to learn anything because I am cute.
Yeah. And Jennifer Aniston is hot. She's beautiful. Even now, it's like, if she's had work done, it's good work. She is just gorgeous. But the thing, you can't you have to be a better character than that. You have to show, or a better writer, you know, that you have to show, like you said, the struggles and her
Right.
earning this kind of, you know, amazing, perfect job for her.
Right. And that is part and parcel of what we are talking about here, is that you have to earn a relationship. You know, it's not something that comes together. Matt and I fought all the time when we first got together.
Oh, yeah, you did.
Yeah, yes. And now, I mean, he threw things. He didn't throw things at me, but
I
he
still
threw
remember
things.
the pen. The pen that
Yes.
splattered all over the wall.
Way, way up on the ceiling. Yeah. Just because he would get so frustrated, and I know I am not an easy person to live with. I am not. My head is almost never in the present. I am almost always inside of a story. I don't hear when people talk to me because there is this other conversation that's going on. Becky is sitting there laughing and her head is nodding up and down.
Yep.
Yeah, there have been times where my people would come up behind me and say something to me. And once, what was it that Mark said? Penis radio.
Yeah.
And he came up behind me and he had been talking to me and I did not hear him. And so he said penis radio. And that came through.
Yeah, but my alien speak never did. Mark and I were giggling at it. Then Joe, because we were, you know, I was making funny sounds. Joe was sitting there giggling too. And he was like nodding and he started saying stuff too. And it was like, nothing. You just kept writing.
Yep. Yeah. Well, you know, deadlines will do that to you too.
Well, yeah,
And-
but it's also
but
how
it's me.
you hyper focus.
Yeah. And that has been me since I was a kid. I would do the same thing while I was reading fiction. And my parents would yell at me and yell at me and yell at me and finally come in and physically insert themselves between me and the page and say something. And then I would hear them. Because, you know, I tunnel down, man. I step right inside of whatever it is that I'm working on and everything else disappears.
Well, plus you'd been through a lot of different things than Matt. And Matt had been through a certain family life where he didn't know how to express himself, maybe. And so just that stuff got
we are very different people. We
Yeah.
are still very different people, but we complement each other. You know, he is weak where I am strong. I am, you know, and he is strong where I am weak, and he's just so cool.
Oh my God.
Anyway, moving on. Yes. So that's you make people over time become their best version of themselves, whatever that might be.
Yeah, I think that would have worked a lot better for Ross and Rachel. And I think that even if they had to have this kind of struggle of an end where they still had issues, that's fine because that's real life.
Yeah, real life, you still have issues.
Yeah. So if they had both became better, stronger people, their best versions of themselves, they had been proud of who they were. They both had spines. They both, you know, were more compassionate. Because he was more compassionate and she was more not. So that's one place he could have made her better. And she was stronger and he was weaker, so she could have made him better, you know? And they never showed that. If they had had struggles and they overcame them, then and still wanted to be together, it would have been such a nice ending for them.
Yeah. Yes. And it could have been done if they had laid the groundwork.
Yeah.
And they didn't.
I did like Chandler and Monica together. I thought they were good.
Monica, as soon as she married Chandler, turned into a bitch.
Yeah, but he kind of calmed her down. He added a lot of levity to that, and she still clearly loved him.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. So of those two relationships, they were the better relationship. But Monica really could have used some more development. Yes. The only woman in that show that I liked was Phoebe, and Phoebe was an airhead, but she had her moments.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, so then that takes us, we kind of veered a bit, but it was important. That takes us to romance with irrelevant conflict, which is the second thing that breaks fictional romance. One of these is the conflict argument, where the writer does not understand what genuine, meaningful conflict is, so has the two characters bitching back and forth at each other. And that's most sitcoms and most fiction where a man and a woman are supposed to be in love with each other. The way the conflict between them is developed is that they snipe at each other and say mean things and just argue about irrelevancies that don't move the story forward.
Yeah, and there's the misunderstandings that create the arguments, and those it can be done well, but most of the time it's not.
Yeah. Oh my God. Stupid misunderstandings that two 4-year-olds could work out if they just talked about it.
Yeah, you can see the difference in the first couple of seasons of Frasier versus the last couple of seasons of Frasier, because the first couple of seasons of Frasier did misunderstandings very well, and then the last few seasons were just horrible. I couldn't stand them. But
yeah, I quit watching that show because of that.
Yeah, but the misunderstandings at that point were just awful and overplayed, and they didn't know what else to do, so they just kept doing the same thing but not as well.
Right. And the cure for the conflict argument, for nothing real at stake, for the third part of this, which is the incidental romance, which means that the romance is not tied into the plot of the story, is that you tie the romance into the story. You put your two characters at different points on the same side so that they are not each other's enemies. Their fates are tied together to the success of this third thing, which is the conflict they both have to solve. Whether it's a comet racing towards the planet or the meddling of relatives who don't think they belong together, or I don't know,
or like
just
Talon.
Yeah, okay, where she is from one side of a divide and he is from another. They are from different cultures. They are from different religions. Her religion gives no appeasement whatsoever to if you are Tonk, that's it. You cannot marry anybody who is not Tonk. And if you are infertile, you cannot get married. What you do then is you give your characters a reason to fight together against a common enemy, whether it's a trivial enemy, whether it's some small thing like a family misunderstanding where her family thinks he's horrible and his family thinks she's horrible, and they can see what's good about each other, but they have to work past the family to be together. That would be a good book. Yeah, where they are each other's enemies, that's never a good book.
Or they can start off like in Talon, where they were each other's enemy.
Oh, where
a common enemy put them together.
Right. Yes. Because they were politically enemies.
Yeah.
He was on the other side of a war. She was a soldier on one side of the war. He was a soldier on the other side of the war. They ended up stuck together because the third party turned out to be the real enemy. The one that was trying to bring both countries together turned out to be the real enemy. And they had to work past all of this shit that they had believed about each other in order to figure out how they could work together. And in working together, there was this one little moment in that book that I drew from my own real life. And that book was written with the main character actually being Matt, because a lot of my main characters now are Matt. But just don't even make that face. I can see that face from here. They were crawling through a hole, through a tunnel to escape. And the tunnel was gross. It was dirt and it was horrible. And there were bugs all over it. And he paused, and she was waiting. She said, "Is everything okay up there?" He says, "I'm just taking care of something." And she follows him through, and he has squashed and moved all of the bugs that were in this one area so that she wouldn't have to crawl through them. And it's this stuff that she, that she didn't even realize it until later that he had done that. And it's this thing that I have seen with Matt where he will do these things that I don't even notice that has done them until all of a sudden, oh my God, I just realized that was done and he did it and didn't even say anything about it. He just took care of it.
Yeah.
Because that's who he is. And that was where their relationship started connecting, was in her realizing that he was this guy who did this stuff for her, and wasn't doing it for points or anything. He just did it because he didn't want her to have to crawl through bugs.
And he knew through a part of the plot all about her. So that was really cool. I liked that. That made me think of me and Tony again. I'm the bug squasher in the house because my big burly firefighter, tough guy does not like bugs.
Yeah. Well, in our relationship, I am too. Because I grew up in places where there were cockroaches the size of your hand on the wall in the shower. Costa Rica, Guatemala. You see really big bugs, and I learned how to deal with them.
And I send pictures of bugs to Matt on a regular basis.
Right.
Because he don't like bugs.
But it was the concept, because I have never squashed a bug and didn't tell him about it, because I want to be praised for what I do. He does all this stuff for me all the time that he just does. And it sometimes I don't notice it for days, and all of a sudden I'll go, oh my God, that's done. I didn't do it. He didn't say anything about it. He just did it for me. Yeah, but it is this differences in relationships where you show people coming together because of these little things that mean everything. And I love that part of talent.
But yeah, so it's part of the whole plot thing. So if you're not writing romance, like Talon is a good example.
Yeah, that's not a romance.
No,
that's a fantasy novel.
Yeah, and that's why I'm taking out the part in Glass House where I was putting them together too early, because I want it to build up between the different books, and maybe the girl character will go with her best friend because that feels more there, or at least it doesn't feel like what they have is finished. So that it's just about putting them together and having their actions show how they feel without having to say it, without having to make it obvious or point it out to the reader. Just like that, like the squishing the bugs, just little things here and there. The guy knew exactly what kind of coffee she had. She doesn't have to point it out like, oh, you knew my coffee. It just, it's little things in books that are not romances that can show that there is something growing there. Maybe he's, in an office or something, and she turns around and he was looking at her, because, and then he looks away because he doesn't want to make her feel weird, but that shows something in there,
Yes. That's, and that too is part of what makes it fun to write, is these people figuring each other out while dealing with something bigger. I have a romance in the Longview Chronicles, which is this 6 short story series. And this thing was planned from the very beginning. I knew what it was going to be. It was between Shay and Mellie.
But a lot of people haven't read that yet.
That's okay, because this is how they get there. I'm not going to go into. Okay. But they are Shay. I established early on that she was not interested in men. The owner told this to a guy who was interested in her. He says, don't even bother. She went through some shit to get to be who she is, and no, men, not gonna work. And then later on, she and Mellie kind of click, but there is this she's the owner's representative. And Melly is not a person of importance to the ship yet. And then, so there's an attraction, but there's not a them. And then Melly ends up being a person of importance to the ship in a number of different ways. And it allows them to have a relationship. And I like, I'm not going to say anything about the end, but they were built over 250,000 words, I think, as a side, just a side of what I was telling, a much, much bigger story. The relationship between those two in there, however, allows them to deal better with the problems they both have to solve, in that they can work on them together. They can figure things out together and back and forth. And as they do this, they grow closer. They see each other differently and better because of this shared struggle for their very survival that runs from pretty much the first of the first stories to the last of the sixth.
There is a working example of a romance in a non-romantic, very tense series of novellas that all got put together as one big book. And if you want to see how Holly did that, then go buy the Longview. Go buy the Longview series, which is, of course, my pitch for her book, not hers. She was just pointing out. But yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yes, it's the Longview Chronicles if you're looking for it.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's all 6 in 1, and you save a bunch of money by buying them that way.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other thing, I'm going to go to Mary Stewart, who wrote a lot of stuff back in the 60s, and I think up through the 70s. She's dead now, I'm pretty sure. But, and if she's not, I'm sorry, Mary. But she was someone who wrote very, very well thought out mysteries. And they were suspense mysteries. And they were suspense mysteries that included male and female protagonists who fell in love. And she is, if you want to look up somebody who from way back just nailed this, look up Mary Stewart, look up her suspense mysteries and her romantic relationships between the male and female protagonists who are attempting to not die. Because having that in common pulls them together in spite of some really significant differences in the characters and some different philosophies and some different things, and it makes them some very, very fine reads. All right then, so let's move on to what's the point of sex in fiction? And now we get down to it. You have to have a reason to show sex. Sometimes it's just for titillation. That's the obvious reason, that you have people who want to watch other people get laid. And Becky is wincing. But let's be real here.
No, it's why did I suggest this topic to discuss with my mother? You don't really, it's like, but it's not that I haven't heard you say getting laid or, worse, but it just, it's my mom, Oh, geez. So anyway,
and I take you back to the Tinker Toy.
No, God, yeah. I asked where babies come from. I didn't get a stork answer. I got a Lincoln log. Lincoln log. Exclamation.
And a hand gesture.
Yes, and a hand gesture. And then I was like, all right.
Well, hey, if your mom's a nurse, you're going to get practical advice because your mother does not want you to accidentally end up finding out the hard way.
No, and you know what? I mean, I that's one thing I can say is that I've always had a very good understanding of sex. And how boys act. And yeah, I will be proud to say I've only ever been with 2 people. Yeah. I didn't need more. I didn't want more. I wanted one person for my whole life. And, the first one didn't work out and got my second one. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, but, hey, it took me 4, but I eventually got there too.
But
and the fact that there's only 3 years age difference between the 2 of them, I find just funny.
Yeah, 3 years age difference between Matt and Tony. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
just
weird.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway,
Yeah, so
what is
sex-
the point of sex and fiction?
Yeah.
And the obvious one is that people like to see that.
Well, you can
There-
say it. I'll try to cringe less. But yeah, it's
Yes.
people like to visualize, the act. They love the chemistry beforehand. They like the build up. They like the sex in especially in romances. If you're picking up a romance, then that's a big part of it, is the chemistry, the build up, and then the sex more than once, and then not necessarily the happily ever after ending, but I like the happy for now endings where it's that it's not a magical fairy tale, but they're together and you have this idea that they're going to be together forever through thick and thin.
Yeah, with the understanding that you have seen thick and you have seen thin, and their conflicts with each other probably will continue.
Yeah.
That they are not a suddenly perfect couple.
Yeah.
And that's kind of reassuring too.
Yeah, absolutely.
You read that and-
Absolutely.
yeah.
I hate
And-
these endings where there's this, all of a sudden, all of the arguments, and that's the poison of the irrelevant conflict, is that the endings, once the irrelevant conflict is gone, the ending is all perfect, all happy. She's pregnant. They're going to have a kid. They're married, or they got married and then now she's pregnant, or, and then everything's fine and they're all happy together and there's nothing ever wrong again because all of the conflict was settled. And then you're left thinking, well, my marriage isn't like that. And a lot of people have enough sense to say, okay, well, this is fake. But then why put it in there? Why not be more realistic and let people know that, hey, you know what? You don't have to live in a fantasy world, I guess. I don't know what it is. I don't know.
Real life is good.
Yeah, real life is great. You don't have to pine over the fact that you fight with your significant other.
Yeah, it's just part of a relationship. There are arguments, there are huffs, there are little pouts from time to time, and then you work through your shit and you move on and you have fun and you do stuff together.
Yeah.
And yeah. So the obvious reason, titillation. The not so obvious reason is to deepen character connections and increase the stakes. Wherein, if you have two people who are fighting on the same side towards a common goal, in spite of the fact that they are fighting with each other, the fact that they have to then start getting along, as with Talon and, oh my God, I don't remember his name.
Gare.
Gare, thank you. Yeah, it's been a long time. Obviously, time to go back to that series. With Talon and Gare, they are on opposite sides, and the fact that they have to, in order to save their two disparate, warring, dumbass peoples, they have to find a way to get along with each other. And they have to make it work, because if they don't, their world ends. Not the whole world, but their ways of life, what they value, the people they love, that shit all comes to an end. So they have to get along with each other. And in having to find common ground, in having to look at each other differently and say, okay, well, you're all I've got. It's the two of us against everything. What the fuck do we do now? To have them find ways to communicate with each other, connect to each other, see what's good about each other, gradually over the period of a big fat novel, and come together in the end as the two people who were right for each other from the beginning, but had to go through hell to see it. And that makes them more important to each other from then on, because they have been through hell. And that's one of the things that made it work so well with Matt and me, is that we had to go through hell to get to where we are right now. It was awful. But we had each other, and we were able to find what was good in each other while we were climbing over this unending series of brutal obstacles and shit that went wrong.
And that's different for a lot of stories. So it can be a romance plot, it can be an office standing between the two of you, like the people in there. It can be anything. It can be just jobs that are pulling people apart. It can be your work schedules are completely different, or it can be two warring countries.
Yeah.
It can be espionage. It can be anything, but having them,
it has to matter.
yeah, having them go through a plot conflict together and have to work together and find out how to work together is great.
Right. And it has to matter to both of them. It has to be the thing that they are fighting to fix has to be important enough to both of them. Tracking a serial killer or discovering a dog napper in the neighborhood, or just the possibilities here are infinite, seriously infinite. You can find anything that will allow two disparate people to find common ground. But it is the concept of two disparate people finding common ground that makes a romance work, and that gives people something to read and believe in and love and cheer for these two characters, because it's not them being stupid from the very beginning. Say, oh my God, you're perfect for each other. Why can't you see it? Have them not be perfect for each other.
Or have them be perfect for each other, but have things that are holding them apart.
Right.
Like with Brock and Angie.
Right, exactly. But it has to matter. It has to matter to the story. It can't be some trivial, dumbass misunderstanding.
Yes.
You know, and seriously, your rule of thumb here is if you could put two 5-year-olds in a room together, give them this problem, and have them solve it. If they can solve it, that wrong answer, go deeper.
Or if just having the two characters talk to each other.
Yes.
For 3, 5, 15, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I have this kind of weird hunch at the back of my head, in my mind, and, correct me if I'm wrong and you will not hurt my feelings, but do you kind of have a crush on me? And the character goes, oh, yeah, I do, actually, but I was afraid to say anything because I thought you didn't like me. Well, yeah, I actually do like you.
Or were you really sleeping with this one girl?
Right, yes.
Or one guy? Or did you cheat on me? Or, did you get me fired?
Yeah. Like, oh God, no, I didn't. You know what? I have heard rumors that was so-and-so, the girl who you're starting to date now. And, I don't want to be the person to say this because, obviously I have a dog in this fight. But, if you check around, you might find that it was her. I can't prove it. You might be able to.
Yeah, and that would, if you want, you can play around with these stereotypes. You can play around with these stupid misconceptions that they throw in all of these books. And like the guy thinking that she's pregnant because somebody said something or he found something. It's so done, and it's so stupid. And the secret baby thing, and it just play around with it, Yeah,
because the awesome twist is to have him bring it up.
Yeah.
Say, so seriously, is that my kid?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why I picked the storylines that I did in Wanda Lucia, because I've been reading romance since I was very, I was like 11 or 12 or 13 or somewhere around there. Once, I think I was pretty typical for many women that I started reading it pretty young. And it just, I got so tired of the same BS all the time. And it's something that hasn't been seen really that much is
take it and break it.
Yeah.
Take the stereotype, take this trope, this thing that has been done over and over again, and break it, and then use breaking it to do something completely different.
Yeah.
And to take the characters in a different direction.
Yeah. And apparently Angie wanted to be the one to take action, which I guess my muse came up with, because that was the whole point of things was trying to do it differently, trying to because the man is almost always the one that can't control himself, that has to make the first move, that is struggling to control himself, but he can't do it. And I did have a little bit of that in Leaving Wanda Lucia, but then when you get to the second book, it's like I mentioned in the last podcast, it's Angie. She's a fucking beast. So it's just neat to, okay, well, what is always, and if your muse isn't helping you, just ask the muse, okay, well, what would every other, sci-fi book do? What would every other romance do? What would every other, whatever genre you prefer to write in, do here? And then, flip it. Make it this genuine, just kind of human interaction.
Right. Right. And it will make the story so much deeper, so much richer, so much more fun to write. Never mind so much more fun to read. If you are not stuck with these damn formulas and can jump in there and take them and break them and move in different directions and explore things that people haven't written yet, you're out there in new territory. You're doing something cool. You are doing something that is going to bring you readers who love what you read or what you write because they've never read it before. And it's fresh and it's sharp and it's got passion to it and it ties into the story. It's not trivial. It's not flat. It's not everything everybody has ever seen forever. It's you and the best of what you can be as a writer brought into the best of what you can bring to your fiction. And romance has a place. The love between two characters, it can be platonic, it can be sexual, it can be any gender, anything, but it has to matter to the story outside of just these two people being into each other, or three people, or whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And in Medwin Song's case, it went up to 9. Her and 9. And
Yeah, so
I actually
10.
wrote that scene. So
10 people.
yeah. Her and 9 guys that she didn't want to get rid of.
She was fond of her husbands.
She was until she wasn't, and then she left and went to Eris. And in Eris, she found a really, really old guy who was totally wrong for her and fell completely in love with him.
So is there anything else to add?
Okay, well, we've got, the examples of romance in your own work. Well,
Yeah, I think we've covered that.
yeah, I think we actually have. So we sort of worked that in as we were going.
Yeah.
So basically what we have left is the takeaway then. Do you want to just jump on that?
Yeah.
All right. There's always room for romance. Always. Any book can benefit from a relationship between two people who are important to each other. Sex without a good reason weakens the story. If you have a good reason to put it in there, if it is part of the story or part of the genre, with my suspense romances, I wrote some pretty dirty sex. And it's some pretty hot stuff because that was part of the genre that I was writing. And it was a requirement of the genre that there be that kind of sex. Well, maybe, I went a little overboard occasionally. That kind of sex in that kind of book. Okay, Becky's just dying on the other side here. This is hilarious. She is blushing. It's awesome.
Well, it's like when
I see her
Matt
blush?
would grab your boob just to freak us out. And we would go, ew, stop. It's so
Now
gross.
I'm blushing. There we go.
Actually, that was in retaliation for us, because you guys would kiss or say something, and we were like, ew. And then he was like, all right, I'll give you something to say ooh about.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, well, it did cut down on the commentary from the Peanut Gallery.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was grateful for that. And a couple of demonstrations of that, and that ended it right there. Kind of like him taking your door. He had some really good solutions for problems.
Yeah, you did.
Anyway, sex without a good reason weakens the story. If you have a good reason, then you put it in the way you want to write it, and you deal with the consequences.
1 second. I just want to clarify. He took my door because I slammed it.
And he told you not to, and you went back and slammed it again.
Yep.
So he goes stomping down the hall with a screwdriver and removes the door and stomps back down the hall in the other direction and puts the door in our bedroom and says, you can have it back when you
Earn it back.
Yeah, you can earn it back.
Yeah.
And then we hung up a towel over your
No,
doorway.
I hung up a towel.
You hung up a towel. Yeah, okay. I knew there was a towel over your doorway for a while. And it's really fucking difficult to slam a towel.
Yeah, you can't slam a towel. I was like, can I have my door back? Not yet.
You had a friend come over and saw the towel, and you had to explain the towel. And I think it was after that, after you had to deal with the consequences in the real world of not having a door and having to explain why you didn't have a door, that you finally got your door back.
Yeah, pretty much. And then the one time I slammed it as a teenager in the other place, he did not bother me about that because he knew he had made a mistake in our conversation. And then he heard me grumbling and talking and bitching and stuff on the inside, and he's like, oh boy. I think he worried that I was going to come and kill you guys in your sleep. I was really pissed because he thought I smoked pot and I didn't smoke pot.
Yeah.
Yep. So then he was like, okay, I believe you. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, parenting. It's
And then
such
he
fun.
explained
And-
why he was so mad and stuff, which, I understood. I get it. But, I was a goody two-shoes at that point. I'd been honest and I had stopped my pathological lying. And, I had been great. So that really bothered me. But then I got the trust that I deserved. And I kept my door. It was a win-win.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, my
So-
God. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a
Back to the
little
takeaway.
off topic there, but
No, I just wanted to explain because we're talking about sex and romance and stuff, and then you say he took my door, and it's like, wait a minute. Let's just clarify that your husband did the right thing for a
yeah,
good reason.
no, it was an educational experience. There's this young guy who was dealing with kids who were only 12 and 10 years older than 12 and 14 years
No,
younger than he
11
was.
and 12 and 14, yeah,
Yeah.
and he'd never had to deal with kids before, and married a woman and got two preteens immediately.
Yeah, who were pretty beaten up from
Yeah.
their actual father and from everything that happened after that.
And including the ex-husbands, both of
Yeah.
them, and it was just, life had been fucking hard. So he had a lot to deal with. He
Yeah,
had a lot
and-
to deal with.
He did, and he stuck with us. I don't know how he did it, but he did, because those first years were tough. Anyway, back to the topic. So let's see. Oh yes, the last one. You write the story that you love. You write it so that you love it. You put into it what you have to have in there to make it matter to you. And you don't worry about whether it fits a genre, whether it fits a kind of novel. You might have to indie publish it if you are way outside of the formula romances that are commercially acceptable. Or if you are doing what I'm doing, with the wild gender bending and all of the different things that I have in mind. You might have to publish these yourself because commercial publishers are traditional.
Well, you're also looking at this from somebody who hasn't done any commercial romance, publication in a while now. I don't know about other genres, but there is, and has been for a little while, a movement to include more genders, more sexual orientations, including more than one person. Even Harlequin alone has different series. And
Okay,
there's
well, yeah, I stopped reading the genre years ago. So, yeah.
there are more traditional publishers out there in the world that are starting to accept a very wide variety of romance, sexual orientations, genders, all of that. So it's, it's not just limited to romance, but for the most part, that's where a lot of it is. So it's, Harlequin has sections for male, female now. So, I think that the publishers are starting to get with the times a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Well,
you
I
definitely
think
check
there-
first.
Yeah, there is, right, exactly. If you want to publish commercially, check and see if this is something that will go into what you want to do, whatever that might be. Okay, and that's what I've got. That finally, it's just make it matter to yourself first, because what you put out there is going to attract the kind of people who like what you like and who will want to read more of what you write, whatever that might be. And to connect with your audience, you have to first be honest with yourself.
And that was our episode on how to write sex and fiction in any genre. And I hope you guys liked it and got a lot from it, because I don't want to have to broach this topic again if possible. I clearly did not think this through. So yeah, anyway, if you do have any questions, any ideas for follow-up piece for this, if we didn't cover everything, you can either leave it on our blog, which is alonewithinvisiblepeople.com, or you can join in the conversation, and hopefully we can answer your questions in the forum and not have to do this again. That is hollyswritingclasses.com. You can create a completely 100% free account. You don't have to buy anything or own any courses. You do get the How to Write Flash Fiction That Does Not Suck 3-week free course, and it is not just about writing flash fiction. It actually gives you a lot of great tips for fiction in general. And you get that when you join. You can come into our podcast forums, which is called Our Podcast, Alone in a Room with Invisible People, and just look for this episode title and go ahead and join in. Give us some questions. Tell us, your opinions, whatever you think, what's the irrelevant conflict that you've read? What are the bad parts of romance that you've read and you've fixed in your own work? Or did we point something out that you hadn't thought of? Just, join in the conversation. You can follow us on the socials at Twitter and Instagram. It is at AIARWIP. You can find us on Facebook at Alone in a Room with Invisible People. If you would like to support the Alone in a Room with Invisible People podcast, you have two options. You can donate on a one-time or whenever you want basis. That is at alonewithinvisiblepeople.com. On the top right, there is a drop-down menu that gives you 3 different options, and we really, really appreciate the support. If you would like to and are financially able to, you can support us on our Patreon page. That is AIARWIP, or just search the hashtag Alone with Invisible People. If you would like to support Holly in everything that she does or anything in particular, we have several different options. If you go to hollyswritingclasses.com, you can take a look at all of the courses she has written. There's some really great ones like how to beat writer's block, how to kind of teach yourself writer's discipline, to something that is more detailed. Like if you're having problems with a plot, she has the plot clinic. She has how to write a novel, which is what she's currently working on now. She has something about how to think sideways. This is a really cool course that kind of helps you kind of figure out different ways to put different things in your books, and how to kind of have a little bit more imagination and have your muse talk to you and shut the inner critic up. She also has how to write page-turning scenes. So if you have really great plots and stuff, you can take a look at how to write those scenes tighter and better. And then she also has dialogue in subtext in dialogue, which is also a really good course about how to make your dialogue mean more than just what's said. You can go through, take a look, and join any of the courses that you think would be helpful for you. There is another way to support her. You can buy her fiction. It's pretty much on anything. I think it's like Amazon, Smashwords, Barnes & Noble, any of the other places?
Kobo. There's just a bunch of all of the places that I can use by using Draft2 Digital. So there are a lot of places.
That's great. That's yeah, I didn't even think about that, Draft2 Digital. And then the last way, if you are a writer and would like to support her Patreon, or a reader, and you get to see firsthand a lot of her raw, first draft stuff, including the, video of her writing part of it, that is Holly Lisle on patreon.com, and she has 3 tiers as well. And just to let you guys know, all of these links are available on the blog. That is alonewithinvisiblepeople.com. On every single episode show notes that we put in, if you scroll down a little bit further, all of our links are available there. You can also email us at show@alonewithinvisiblepeople.com. So that should be it. I believe we've covered everything. And again, if you have any questions, go ahead and message us on the boards, on our blog, or through email. And know that the community at hollyswritingclasses.com is very safe. It's very supportive of everyone in their writing efforts. And we look forward to seeing you there.
All right, so remember that the important thing about this is to figure out why the romance matters in the story that you want to tell, and then make sure that you make it matter to you. And kick ass.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
You want to write, you love words, you love fiction, but you don't know where to start, or how to middle, or where to finish. I do. I'm Holly Lisle, and I've been doing this professionally since 1991. And I know how I did what I did to go pro, and I'll be happy to show you what I've learned. Start with my free 3-week flash fiction class at hollyswritingclasses.com.